What is that in the corner? It's like a little derpy smiley liquor. I love it. Hey guys, it's Davin from Davin D's Doodles. I'm dusting off the old sketchbook today to bring you some Resident Evil fan art. As we all know, Resident Evil 3's remake is dropping in about 2 weeks, and I'm very excited. In honor, I'm going to go ahead and do one of my favorite enemies from the game, which are the Lickers. There's just something very creepy for me personally about something that crawls on the floor or on the ceiling or on the walls. Basically, if it crawls, it's creepy, and so these are just right up my alley. I started by just looking up different references on like Pinterest and Google for people. The approach I wanted to do for these was to basically find a reference of an actual person and turn these into liquors as I thought they would be in the game. As we all know, lickers were once people, so it made sense to me to take a regular person and transform them into a monster. The one on the right was a woman. She was much more petite. She had a little bit more muscled on the legs, but her arms were very thin, very toned. She was hunched over, and now that I look at the finished product, it kind of does look like a dog or like Gollum or something. But the one on the left was actually referenced from a man. He had very strong arms and very muscled legs. He was a mountain climber, which worked perfectly for the lickers. So what I did was I started off by drawing them as I would if they were people. That's the whole point. They were people. They are now monsters. And where I started realizing I was going to have to jump into the deep end was when the anatomy for all of this, especially the muscles, was going to be visible. A lot of times it's very easy to hide anatomy mistakes. You've got, the skin, you've got clothes. For liquors, there's none of that. Everything is in your face to see all the flaws, and that was very scary for me as an artist to try and overcome. But once I got into it and just kind of went with it and accepted the fact that it's not going to be perfect and that's okay, I had a lot of fun with it. The the arms were some of my favorite things to draw. I'm very much in love with the way the arms in the midsections came out on the one on the right. It has I almost feel like the arms could be passable. Um as far as the anatomy goes, I was so happy with them. And the claws themselves, the toes, the hands, I love to draw hands, and so just going crazy and making them longer, making them bigger was it was hard to do at first, but once I let myself go and got into the mindset that these are monsters, it's okay. It was so much fun to do. I also, one of the iconic things that I saw from the concept art from the Lickers was that their midsections are actually fairly hollow. Their backs are very muscled, but when it comes to the abdomen, there's like an empty cavity there. And next time I draw them, I think I'm going to do more to try and put more of an emphasis on that because that's part of what makes it so creepy. They are so strong, they are so fast, but there's so little to them that it's overwhelming. So I had a lot of fun going in with the various details. I just tried to make it look as veiny and gooey and as disturbing as possible without being gory. I didn't want to go down that particular road. I just wanted it to look creepy and just make you kind of second guess what you were looking at without it being confusing. That's why I went through with a marker a second time, especially with the pose on the right, because the arms are crossed over and because she's sitting kind of hunched down with her heels tucked a little bit further behind her. It was so easy to look at it and get confused. I didn't like that. So what I try to do generally with black and white pictures like this is I went ahead and I outlined the form itself. I wanted it to pop from the background, so I made the outline darker. Where the arms crossed over, I wanted the outline of the form of the arm to be darker so that you could see, okay, this is where the arm is actually going. This vein belongs to this arm. This rope is part of the abdomen. I didn't want it to bleed together. I didn't want it to be too confusing, and I hope that that came across with what I did. The one on the left was just a lot of fun in general. I do have it's just very difficult in general to come up with something that's not extremely stiff sometimes, and I wanted him to be in motion, whereas the one on the right is clearly sitting, they're listening, they're gonna pop out at Claire Leon the second a door opens. The one on the left is already on the hunt. I feel like he's going after a zombie, he's going after Claire, he's going after somebody, and it was a lot of fun to be able to kind of have that left arm of his reaching forward, to have him crawling. And the pose that I had chosen, the mountain climber was actually climbing up a wall, and it worked so well for the lickers because I felt like if I had just turned the paper, he could have been upside down on the ceiling coming at the player, which was a very iconic part of the video game. It was one of the very first things I remember seeing in the remake that creeped me out so bad that I couldn't. And I really wanted to capture that, and I feel like it was very successful in this. So I went through, I added all the details. I tried to kind of show where the different muscles met, twisted. And if anybody has references for muscles interacting, twisting, bending, that would be so helpful because I looked at books and it just wasn't what I needed for the actual picture. Please feel free to leave a comment. I will definitely look at all the suggestions and try to get better and improve on that. I would love to draw them again in the end. This was also one that changed because my husband insisted that I had to have the tongue. He has to have the tongue to be a licker, and I was more than happy to add it, even though I was afraid I was going to mess him up at first. It came out so beautifully. I hope to be doing more Resident Evil fan art in the next 2 weeks. If anybody does have recommendations on characters, iconic moments, enemies, please feel free to leave a comment. I will read them all, and I hope to get some more suggestions. Thank you so much for your time. You guys have a good one, and I'll see you again soon. This one. This one right here in the corner. He is still my favorite. So smiley, so happy.